Paraguay is an underrated country, sort of tucked up between Argentina and Brazil and Bolivia, so most people that are passing through the region tend to skip it. And this is a real shame because Paraguay has such an interesting history and a really curious linguistic situation that's quite unlike anything you'll find in those surrounding countries. You can, of course, visit Paraguay and explore completely in Spanish, but your experience will be that much richer if you know even just a little bit about Guarani. Here's 10 essential words to know before travelling to Paraguay. Number 1, Mba'eichapa. This is the first word that you will use, see, hear, and it actually gives you a bit of 3 in 1 as well, which is really good. It means hello, but it also has this meaning of how are you kind of encompassed in it as well. So it's kind of like how in British English we might say, you're right, as a hello, how are you, all encompassing with just really squashed down into one word. And if we break this word down, we get to see a little bit about Guarani and how it's composed as well. So that first bit, mba'e. First of all, it starts with a nasal. Plenty of those in Guarani to get used to. Lots of fun to speak. Prepare to have letters pronounced here. All very good stuff. Mba'e. Then we also have this glottal stop, a'e, kind of like in British English again, where we would say butter versus butter. That second one, real prominent glottal stop. Water, 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 right? That's the glottal stop, and it's here as well. Mba'e, 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 mba'e. It's kind of like a breath back. And again, lots of glottal stops in Guarani as well. Glottal stops and nasal stuff. These are the things I love. This is why I love Guarani. And in terms of meaning, mba'e means what or thing. So it's a really useful word to know. Then we have this icha in the middle, which is a suffix that sort of adds this meaning of like how. And then at the very end is that pa sound, and this is a suffix for making something into a question. So mba'eichapa, 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 pa. We hear the pa and we know that's a question. You might also see in here pico and pio, two doing this same role. And there's another one as well, which is ta. And when you see this tag, technically this is like the future tense, but it can be used as a bit of a question tag as well. If you speak Russian, think about how sometimes people might say budish, like, will you take this, right? As a question. So it's a bit like that. Word number 2 is Jopara. Now this is a hugely important word. I mentioned Paraguay's unique linguistic situation and how there's Spanish and there's Guarani. There's also this thing in the middle. It's like a Venn diagram. You have Spanish over here, you have Guarani over here, and in the middle you get this mix of the two. That is Jopara. If you look at statistics on paper, around 90% of people are listed as speaking both languages, both Spanish and Guarani, the 2 official languages of the country, to some level. However, what that doesn't often account for is Jopara, this mixture. And if you ask a lot of predominantly Spanish speakers in Paraguay, oh, do you speak Guarani? They might say, no, I don't. But really what they might speak is this Jopara blend. And the reason this is such an important word to know isn't just because of that cultural linguistic understanding that it gives you, but also as a learner, Jopara is the dream. If you know Spanish and you're learning Guarani, and then you don't know a word in Guarani, you can say the Spanish and it's not like you've fallen back into the other language. No. You're now speaking Jopara. There's no sort of official guidance on the hard and fast rules of what is Jopara, which Spanish word, which Guarani word. That mix is quite fluid. And what this means is that if you already know Spanish and you want to come to Paraguay to practice some of your Guarani, it's going to be completely fine when you sort of mumble along and jumble through those words, and then when you get to something you don't know, switch to Spanish, chances are you'll be understood. So it's such a big help as a learner. Word number 3 is she. And I'm including this because, regionally in Latin America, Che Guevara, pretty important figure, but she, you will see a lot around Paraguay. It doesn't really have anything to do with Che Guevara most of the time. It means I. While we're here, we may as well throw in some other subject pronouns as well. So we have she, nde, that's another nasal, that nd, nde, which is you, singular. He, she, it is ha'e. So we've got another glottal stop in the middle of that one, ha'e. We then have 2 words for we. Now this is something that is quite common in diverse languages across the globe, but isn't necessarily common amongst some of those wider studied languages like French and Spanish and Japanese. So it's something that you might be familiar with if you know Tagalog, maybe Cree, maybe Tamil. And these two words for we are either inclusive or exclusive of who you're talking to. So in Guarani, ore is exclusive, nyande, nasal at the start, nyande is inclusive of the person you're talking to. Let me give you an example. If I say to you, we went on holiday, it was great. And we didn't go on holiday, you and me, I went on holiday with my mum, right? Then I'm using the exclusive version of we. So in Guarani, I'm saying ore. But if I'm talking to you and including you in that we, then I would say, we went on holiday. Do you remember? Do you remember when we went on holiday? And I mean you and me. That would be the inclusive version of we, which is nyande. The plural word for you is pain, 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 pain. Nice nasal at the end. And then finally, they is haequera, haequera. So if you remember, he, she, it was hae, and then haequera is they. Now this gives us something else to look into. The quera, this is your plural suffix. So you can add this to most nouns, and you will see some nouns later on. Add that quera at the end and you've got your plural. It's also worth mentioning that the general word for is also hae. And I'm going to tell you something now that you're going to think, oh, why did I just watch the last 2 minutes of this video? Guarani is what's known as a pro-drop language. That means that once you've conjugated a verb, you don't have to say the pronoun if you don't want to, because it's clear from that conjugation who is doing the action and who you're talking about. But that said, I think it's still a useful thing to know, because if you don't know a verb, you can indicate who you're talking about with the subject pronoun, and it's given us a bit more of an insight into the language, which I think is really cool. Word number 4 is hóga, or hóga, or róga. Why the change? So hóga means house or home. This is something you'll likely see a lot on signs for shops. I remember seeing one that said waffle róga. We'll get to the róga in a minute. And you know, all sorts of things like pet shop would be like pets home and things like this. And so yeah, it's a really, really common word in that sense, but it's also a really useful way to get used to this idea of the H and the R and the difference in that meaning. So róga and hóga still mean house or home, but there's just a slight difference, a slight additional difference to that meaning. Hóga, we'll start with that, with the H at the beginning. This means his or her or its home. So this is like making that noun third person possessive. Róga can work for all the other pronouns. So you could say she róga, my house, etc., etc. It's kind of actually like the she word, C-H-E-Z in French as well. It's got that similar connotation because it has this real warm, sort of very familial, homely feel to it when you use róga with the R. You might see or hear things like tupa róga, God's house or church. And because this pattern, these different letters at the start, these different prefix letters indicate something quite common, possession, you will come across this a lot. And I feel like hóga, hóga, róga is the easiest hook that I've found to help me remember what it means. Number 5, rohayhu. So if you learn just one thing in Guarani because you just want to impress people and show them that you have a little bit of the language and you understand that Guarani exists, rohayhu is a great start point. One of my favorite memories from visiting Paraguay is going to a concert. It was called Asunciónico and it had lots of bands. In fact, they had the Gorillas and the Gorillas and the Killers, which I feel like all concerts should rhyme. All the acts should rhyme. But the Gorillas, Damon Albarn was on stage and he said, "Róhayhu Paraguay." And it was so great and everyone cheered. And I thought that was just such a lovely touch that he knew that this language existed. He's done his research. So like, good for you, Damon Albarn. And the grammar on this one is also really interesting. Another reason why I want to share this with you, because it's a good example. So you'll spot the she right away, no doubt. You've probably already seen that and gone, yep, I know that. It means I. Absolutely, you're right. The verb to love is róhayhu. And then what happens in terms of conjugation with Guarani is that the conjugation bit that in languages like French and Spanish would go at the end of that verb, in Guarani, it goes at the start of that verb. And normally For she, that little starter, that little conjugation would be a. So for example, aguata means I walk. She aguata, aguata, right? The a is telling you that it's she, I. And aguata is the verb to walk. Ro is typically the you conjugation, right? So roguata would be you walk. But she rohayhu is, you could consider it like a reflexive verb. It's a bit like that, you know, like je t'aime has that te thing in the, it's further up, you know. It gets confusing if we go too deep into it, but just know that it's an example of how conjugation works, but it's a weird example. It's not the default one, but it's still a good one to learn because, as I say, it's going to impress everyone. If you say, "Rohayhu Paraguay," people will be like, yes, they'll love you for it. Word number 6, Aguyje. Maybe this is more important than rohayhu because it is the one you're probably going to say the most. And if you can say it in Guarani and Spanish, that's just a bonus. So from that description, you might have guessed that Aguyje means thank you. It's also really fun to say. Aguyje, Aguyje. Just have a go. It feels nice in your mouth. And there's also a song that I mentioned in my Guarani music episode by the band Tierra Adentro called Aguyje. So if you want to get this word drilled into your head, you've got something that you can use, you can listen to, and you can enjoy and get a little bit of Paraguayan Grammy nominated culture in there as well. Number 7 is Paraguay. Now, you probably already know the name of the country that you're visiting. I imagine when you booked a flight that was probably there. You probably know where you're going. But I do want to talk about this one because the etymology is a little bit interesting. There's no one decided etymology of the word Paraguay, but there is one that I like quite a lot. First up, we need to talk about the capital city. So Asunción is the Spanish name for the capital city, but the Guarani name is Paraguay. Not confusing at all when you're trying to figure out where to go. Not even Paraguay ciudad. No, not like Guatemala City, Mexico City. No, just Paraguay. So on to my favourite etymology of this one then, if it's real. But if it is from Guarani, the likely one is that it's para, meaning sea, gua, meaning origin or from, and then u, meaning river. It also means water. So it's like the sea from the river that gives birth to the sea. And the reason I wanted to share this with you, well, there's a couple of reasons. Reason number 1 is I just think etymology is interesting, regardless of how confirmed it may well be. Reason number 2 is that the gua is actually really useful. So because this means from, it's useful for you if you want to say that you're from somewhere. So you might say Mba'eichapa. People are like, whoa, you know a Guarani word, that's amazing. Where are you from? You can then say, I'm from your country. And all you do is country and gua gets tagged on the end of that word. So I would say, she hae Inglaterra gua. She hae Inglaterra gua, right? You could shorten it and just say Inglaterra gua, like I'm from England, right? You might in English, you might in Guarani, you might in any language, just go for a short answer. But she hae Inglaterra gua. Word number 8 is actually a bit of a collection again, and this is the terere lingo. So if you've been to Argentina, to Brazil, you're probably already familiar with mate, the drink, kind of quite bitter but very refreshing, made from the yerba mate, dried leaves. And in Paraguay, it also exists. Right from landing in the airport, you will see yerba mate, terere, everywhere. You will see people in the airport with huge flasks and you will wonder what the plan is to get it through security. But regardless, the flask is there, like a tea urn, like absolutely massive. And this is full of terere. So there'll be the yerba mate leaves in there, there'll be some maybe medicinal herb additions, and then there'll be some water, some ice. And that's the main difference, it's the preparation. So whereas mate is prepared with hot water, terere is prepared with cold water. And because this is just everywhere, I want to give you some of those key words. Some of them are a bit more Spanish, some of them a bit more Guarani, but together you're going to want to know the cluster of words. We'll start with terere. So this is the Guarani word for the drink itself and kind of the custom as a whole. The dried leaves, the main ingredient, that's called yerba, and the prepared drink yerba mate. Poja ñana is the name for that medicinal herb mix. And then you're going to drink all this from a guampa, the name for the cup, with a bombilla, the name for the straw. And it's quite a special straw, often metal, with some holes in the bottom so that you don't slurp up the leaves. Instead, you just slurp up the liquid. Very clever. Word number 9 is jaguar. So did you know, you already know a Guarani word, or two in fact. Jaguar and cougar are both believed to have their etymological roots in Guarani. Pretty cool. And jaguar in Guarani doesn't necessarily mean jaguar. Instead, it's the word for dog. So you can see how we got to this point. The typical etymology roots that we expect is that it's gone from Guarani to Tupi to Portuguese to English, and we've taken that idea of it being a dog to being a jaguar. And I'm including this one because it's a relatively easy one to remember because of that cognate, and it's something that you're likely to see around. You know, you might see a stray dog or a pet dog that someone has, and you can say, oh, jaguar. You can use this one quite easily. And finally, word number 10 is heta. Now, heta means lots or very, so a really useful word just to enhance what you want to say, and in fact enhance what we can say already. So if we think back to the words that we've got from this video, rohayhu, right? We can now say, I love you very much. Heta rohayhu, right? Boom, done. In a very simple rudimentary form, we could say heta hóga, we could say heta terere, we could say heta jaguar, but remember, we could also be slightly more accurate here. We could use that cuera for the plural, and jaguar, jaguacuera. Heta, jaguacuera. Boom. We're doing some really cool stuff already. Yay! So there you have it, a handful of Guarani words that will just start you off, give you something that you can use when you visit, something that you can explore and play with, and hopefully a little taster into a language that you may want to go and discover more about. If you do want to learn more and you then want to go on and learn some vocab for that language, then Vibrant Vocab is the best option I have available for you. This is my mini course all about how to learn vocabulary, how to finally make words stick. So when you're learning any language, words and vocabulary, it's like the bricks of that language house. Grammar is the cement, right? You can build a reasonable height before you really need to add the cement, but you can't do anything with the cement and no bricks. So you need vocab. It is the foundation of any language that you're going to learn. And Vibrant Vocab is all about making learning vocabulary easier, making it quicker, more enjoyable, more flexible, making it actually work for you. If you want to learn more, the link is in the description for this episode, and I look forward to welcoming you into Vibrant Vocab. As always, do all of the YouTube things, like, subscribe, follow, tell a friend, put it on a ballpoint pen. Actually, they're quite small. Let's go for like a blimp. Let's go for a blimp. Put it on a blimp. Tell people to subscribe on a blimp, and I will see you next time. Have a wonderful day. Thank you. Bye.